In this lesson, we are going to learn how to load a model in React 3 Fiber. In the previous lessons, we created a hamburger, if you remember, and implemented it in Three.js. We are going to do the exact same thing, but with React 3 Fiber, and discover some tips and tricks along the way. And as you can see, I have the final project running right here. And as a bonus, check that, we can play with that fox that you probably already seen, especially if you did the previous lessons. So I'm going to close that one, and we are going to talk about the current setup of the project. So get the starter, npm install, npm run dev, it's the usual. In the starter, nothing very interesting. We have the sphere, we have the cube, we have the green floor, the usual. We have some lights. I activated the shadows on those lights. We have perf so that we keep an eye on performances, especially when we are going to add the burger. You're going to see that we're going to duplicate that burger at some point, and having a look at the geometries and materials will be quite useful. And I also added Dray to the project, so React 3 Dray, in order to use orbit controls and more helpers that you will discover along the way. All right, first let's do some cleanup, just because I wanted to have something on the scene, but we don't care about that sphere and that cube because we are going to load models instead of those. So let's remove them. It's the two first meshes. So from your experience.js file, you can remove those two meshes and they are gone, and we're going to put our burger there instead. So how do we load a model? We have, by the way, we have multiple models available in the public folder. All right, you check the public folder. We have a bunch of things. We have those first files that interest us: the hamburger.glb and the hamburger.draco.glb. This is the Draco compress version. All right. If you don't know about Draco compression, you should do the load model, the initial load model lesson first. We're going to discuss GLTF loading. All right, GLB is a GLTF format. It's the binary format, as we discovered in the previous lessons. And we're going to focus on GLTF because it's the standard and it's the most frequently used one. But what we will discover with GLTF can be used with many other formats. There may be some variations because other formats don't support the same thing, because some formats offer specific usage, etc. But what we discover here, most of what we discover here can be applied to other formats. Okay, React 3 Fiber provides a hook named useLoader. Okay, let's use that one. useLoader will abstract the loading regardless of the loader. All right, we are going to use the GLTF loader, but we can use other loaders with this one. But first we need to import it. So always in expense.js, the file, we're going to import it, and we don't have a fiber yet, so we're going to import it right here. So use loader from React 3 Fiber, like this. Nice. Then we need to send it the Three.js loader class that we want to use. Okay, this loader will abstract the loading of things, but we need to specify what loader useLoader should use, what Three.js loader the useLoader helper should use, meaning that we need to import it. And if you remember from the previous lesson, the GLTF loader is available in that folder. All right, it's 3 examples: GSM loaders, GLTF loader. So let's go, let's import this one too. You can rely on auto import if you want, but I don't want to go too fast. Oh, actually, thank you, VS Code. He completed this one. So it's 3 example GSM loaders, GLTF loader. I'm going to add JS here because I don't like to have no extension here. I find it a bit weird. It works the same. And next, inside the experience, we're going to call useLoader. All right. We're going to save it, so assign it to a model variable. You will understand what we get here, but as you can see, it's probably the model, but what exactly do we get? The first parameter of useLoader is going to be the loader we want to use. All right. And the second parameter is going to be the path to the file. And we're going to talk a bit more about that. But first, let's make sure that this is working. So it's hamburger.glb. Yeah, no, it should have been cheeseburger. I missed this one. It's okay. We call it hamburger the whole course. Let's keep calling it hamburger. And save, and you should have this in your console. I don't know why I lost the context. I gave it a reload and you get this. This looks okay, no error, everything is fine. If you get an error, obviously pause the video, check that you have the exact same code as me. And in here we have a bunch of stuff. By the way, about the path of the hamburger, it's a quick reminder on how this works because many of the students had issues with setting the proper path to that. We put /, but if you check in here in the src folder, there is no hamburger.grb. / means it's the same folder. All right, / is always like the same folder, this current folder, and then look for this file. And as you can see, it's not there. But here's the thing. As I told you earlier when we created our first React application, what you put in the public folder will be available like if it's inside the same folder, and I'm talking about the path here. So it's available right here. So if I put, see, there is a fox gltf fox bin, it means that I can write this. So it's going to be fox, be careful with uppercase, lowercase, and etc. GLT, you don't have to do it. I'm just trying to explain. GLTF and then fox dot, I'm going to use the GLTF file. All right, I think I got it right. That file here, we give you access to that file here. Just like for the hamburger, it's just, since it's at the root of the public folder, so it's inside the public folder, we can access it by doing hamburger.grb. I'm not going to click because it's a GRB file, it will just download it, but you get the idea. Files in the public folder are available just like this. And when we wrote this, see, it's not importing, it's not an import that we are doing it. We are just providing a path. And since we put just /, well, it will simply add that to the URL like this, so to the domain, and download it. Meaning that it should work if we put that online. Be careful, sometimes you put your website online and it will be available through a path. By that I mean that it's going to be maybe like mywebsite.com / some path / my name / and then you get your experience. This path here should work with the path we provided here. All right. This means that the GRB file is aside of the index.html. It should work. Okay. But be careful if you put your website live and you get some errors. Maybe it has something to do with the path or some weird stuff like this. Just check those. Parentheses close. We need to move forward. Back to the experience. We loaded something. Remember, we put something in the console log. I'm going to close this one, maybe zoom a little more. And we loaded this. So we have a bunch of stuff in there. We have scene singular. We have scenes plural, which is an array with one item. We have some animations, cameras, assets, nodes. What's in the nodes? We have scene, bottom bun, cheese, meat. Okay, we got a bunch of stuff. Seems to be working. I mean, you can see like bun, top bun, etc. Looks like it's the right model. That's great. But how do we add that model to the GSX and then see it on the scene? Can we do something like that? So the scene seems to be the scene property, right? We have an object. It's a group, sorry. And in that object, we have 4 meshes, and those are the bottom bun, etc. Meat, cheese, top bun. All right. So how can we add it? Maybe we can do something like, I'm going to put it right here. Like that, model.scene. No, this won't work. Maybe we can do as a tag, something like that. This won't work either. We need to use a primitive, and it will look something like that. Primitive. We can auto-close it, and we need to provide the scene or anything which can be added to the scene as the object property, attribute more precisely. And we need to provide it there. All right, so you create a primitive. I wrote it wrong, sorry. So primitive like this. You add an object attribute and you put the scene in there, and check that we have our hamburger. So it's way too big. We are going to fix that right away. So we added the primitive with the object attributes. Fine. The scale is a bit too big. We need to reduce it, and we can use the classic attributes on it. We can play with the position, the rotation, the scale, etc. So I'm going to put a smaller scale, so something like 0.35, and we get our hamburger with the right size, and it's looking good. Nice. Let's move forward. we are missing the shadows. Don't worry, we are going to add those later. It will be in a more interesting context. But what about the Draco version? Can we do can we use a Draco file? So if you try to load, instead of the hamburger.glb, we try to load the dash Draco.glb. What do we get? We get an error. Do you remember from the previous lessons? When you use the Draco compression, I mean a Draco compressed model, you need to add the Draco loader to the GLTF loader. It's getting complicated. Let me reassure you right now, it's going to get super easy a bit later, but I want to show you kind of the hard way, although it's much easier than in native 3GS. This is the hard way, and then we see the easy way. Maybe you can guess what we are going to use. So yeah, we need to instantiate the Draco loader. I put the link as always. You can check the link if you want if you forgot what is the Draco loader class, the GLTF loader class, and the various methods. So first we need a way to send it to the use loader. All right, because if you remember from the previous lessons, when we instantiate the GLTF loader, which we are not doing right now, we let React Free Fiber do it in the use loader. We just provide the class and React Free Fiber, we do it. How do we get access to the instance of that class then? Well, you can do that by adding a third parameter right here. And that third parameter needs to be a function like that. And in that function, we will get access to the instance of the loader. So the GLTF loader in our case can be another loader, but we are using GLTF. So we can put loader in the arguments right here and check that. I'm going to give it a reload. We get access to the GLTF loader. For now, just ignore those errors because the Draco loader is not working yet. But if you scroll up in the console, you will see that you have your instance of the GLTF loader. It's not just the class, it's an instance of the class that use loader will use to load that file. Great. This means that we get access to the loader and we can add the Draco loader to the GLTF loader. Follow me. Try to gather as much information as possible in case you need to do it the hard way, but right after you're gonna see it's gonna be super easy. So first we need to get access to the Draco loader. Let's be lazy and duplicate the import of the GLTF loader and load the Draco. So Draco is all uppercase and loader with just the L uppercase, like this. So we get access to the Draco loader. Yeah, that's it. Next, in that function where we get access to the loader instance, we can instantiate the Draco loader. So let's go. Draco loader equal new Draco loader. Be careful with uppercase, lowercase, etc. On that Draco loader, we need to provide the path to the decoder. Remember that? Set decoder path, and I've already added the Draco decoder over here. Right? It's in the public folder, meaning that we can get access to it by doing Draco / and then the loader inside. And in the case of the Draco loader, we just need to provide that folder, and then Draco loader will check what it needs inside that file. So let's go. Set Draco path. We just provide the path like we did for the hamburger. So it's going to be Draco. And I put a / at the end. We just provide the folder. And finally, we instantiated the Draco loader. We need to send that Draco loader to the GLTF loader. I probably said loader 100 times already. So loader set Draco loader, Draco loader. So many loader. Let me check. Yeah, check those loaders everywhere. We save. And if you did everything right, give it a reload and you should get your hamburger back. And this one is Draco compressed, meaning it's smaller. It has to be decompressed, uncompressed. I'm not sure. Decoded. Let's say decoded, but the file is much smaller, which can be useful in your project. It's working. Congratulations. Let's talk about lazy loading. Yeah, currently React Free Fiber is holding the rendering of the experience as long as everything isn't ready in our scene. What do I mean by that? If you give it a reload, the first frame you see from the scene contains the hamburger. All right, again. Meaning that the experience waited for everything that is inside to be ready before before being drawn for the first time. So we get everything we put in there when the scene, when the component is ready. So we have no perf, no orbit controls, no directional light, no ambient light, no mesh, no hamburger, as long as everything is not ready. And everything will be ready when that model will be loaded. So in a way, if you have a huge model and you need to wait a few seconds so that it loads because the connection is not that good, well, people will just have a white page and look at that white page for 1, 2, maybe 3 seconds, which is already way too long, and then finally see something, which is kind of the normal behavior. But maybe we can improve that. Maybe we can have, let's say, the floor. We can rotate around. We can have some objects that can be created without loading anything. And when the hamburger is ready, it adds itself to the scene. And then we can continue to experience everything, but with the burger that has been added. That would be great. And I call that lazy loading. But first, we are not in the right condition to test that. The hamburger is way too small, especially the Draco compressed version of the hamburger. It's loading too fast. Even if we had the network throttling that we will discover together right after, if you don't know what it is yet, the hamburger is loading way too fast. So first we're going to switch to a bigger model, and you already know that bigger model. I'm talking about the flight helmet. You know, the kind of old school flight helmet. We're going to use this one. It's really realistic, looks really good. Anyway, we're going to add it. So check the path right here. It's going to be, again, it's in the public folder. So it's the flight helmet folder. Be careful with uppercase, lowercase, /GLTF, and T and F are uppercase. And then flight helmet.gltf. It's not GLB, it's GLTF, like that. And you keep the rest, like Draco and stuff, you keep them. Give it a reload and check that my little helmet is right here. So it worked. Nice. We are using that model, I repeat, because we need a bigger model to really test that the time it takes to load the model. That's the point of what we are doing right now. Let's make it look a bit better by playing with the primitive transforms. So we're going to put a scale to 5. And then a position, that's why we're going to move it lower by doing -1. So position y equal -1. All right, here's our model, and it's much bigger than our hamburger. There is a bunch of textures, a bunch of vertices, so it takes time to load it. But we are in local, and in local, everything loads way too fast. I mean, it's as fast as your SSD or hard drive can provide. So it doesn't make sense. We need to slow it down even more. And we're going to use the network throttling. We can activate the network throttling to simulate a real-life experience with a model that takes time to load. The idea of the network throttling is that you Chrome, I'm using Chrome, but you can use it in other browsers. We simulate a bad bandwidth so that we can see how long it takes to load websites. And it's not just about React 3 Fiber, 3JS, and WebGL. You can use that for any website that you are developing. It's super cool when you develop in local, so that you make sure that everything loads as fast as possible, and the user can experience the website as soon as possible. So yeah, by the way, the following instructions assume that you are using Chrome, but most modern browsers have very similar features. So if you're using a Firefox, you have the same thing. All right, I'm going to show you Chrome only, but Firefox is you just check the various DevTools tabs and you will find it. It's very similar. It's maybe even better. So open your developer tools and go to the network tab. So this one, I'm going to close that. Okay, so for me it's super tight, but it should be enough. We're going to activate the throttling. First, I recommend you to click on that disable cache. All right, this, when you reload by doing, I don't know, the shortcut or just clicking here, it will consider that it's the first time that you show that website. And it does that only when the DevTool is open. So if you close the DevTool, don't worry, it's not going to do it. So you can keep experiences the many websites you want to use. But if you open the DevTools and have this checkbox checked, it's going to simulate like it's the first time you see that page, which is great. Then we need to activate the throttling, and we can do it through this little select right here. So for me, it's on right after the disable cache. By default, it's no throttling. Be careful, yours is maybe in another language. So it's this one, find it. And the default values are not that great. I don't know what they're waiting to add some more relevant values, but fast 3G and slow 3G doesn't mean much. The values are not very interesting. And offline, yeah, by the way, you can test your website offline. It makes sense. There are ways to make a website works offline if the user already saw that website. So anyway, I'm not going to talk about that. What I recommend is to add something a bit different by clicking on add. Okay, I just click on the last value here, which is custom, and you click on add. And in there, you can add new custom bandwidth throttlings. I like to call this one, what's the name? Something like quite okay. That's not the name I use, but I forgot which one I use. So quite okay bandwidth, something like that. You can put whatever you want in there. And we are going to put 100. Can I write it like that? I don't remember. No, okay, you have to put it like that. Something like that. It's kilos, so you just put, yeah, there is 1 and then 5 zeros. I think so. The upload, you don't really care about this one, and the latency, you don't care about this one. You can play with those, but right now we just want to make the model load slower. And check that. Yeah, that was the value. Okay, so to get 100 megabits, sorry, it's not the same. You put 1 and then 5 zeros. You save that one. You can close it, so it's the cross here. And then in there, you get access to the quite okay bandwidth. It's such a bad name, sorry. You click on that and check that there is a little warning here telling you that be careful, you are now experiencing that website with a throttling. And now I'm going to give it a reload, just a classic reload. Check that. It takes time to load. So we waited, I don't know, like 1, 2, 3, 4 seconds before seeing the model. And as you can see, you can change the tab, by the way. You can go on the console or whatever. We see nothing, 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 nothing. And finally we see something, which might seem okay. Maybe you're okay with that. Maybe you don't want the user to be able to see the rest of the scene as long as the model is not ready. But we are going to discover some ways to see the whole scene when the model is loading, and the model will add itself when it's ready. Okay, next. That's what I just said. Yeah, and I like to call that lazy loading, just like we call it for images. You know, like you see an article, you know that there will be an image there. The image is loading. You can read the text. You can click whatever you want, have some animations. And when the image is ready, then you see that image. And usually it shows up with a fade or whatever. So that's where we call lazy loading. And I think that the way we use it there is also lazy loading. And to do that, we're going to use the suspense. So it's not a trick. I'm not telling you that I want that there is something coming. No, the name of the solution is suspense. And that's the name of the thing, which is a bit weird, but why not? So suspense is a tag that comes from React, and it will wait for the process to be done before rendering the component. But we need to do some stuff here. If we add a suspense right here, the whole experience will wait for this to be done before rendering. Okay? If we add a suspense here, the whole experience will wait for the component to be done doing whatever he's doing before rendering. So we get the exact same result. All right, so it's not working if we just do that. We need to tweak it a little. We need to create a different component. We need to put that loading, so everything we did about loading stuff, etc., inside a component, a separated component, and that whole component, thanks to the suspense, will wait to be ready, so to finish downloading the helmet in our case, in order to render, and the rest of the experience will render. It's a lot to take, but be careful. Don't worry. When you see it, you will understand. So, as I said, we need to separate everything related to that model and its loading in a different component. And that component will do his stuff and only render when it's ready, thanks to the suspense. So let's go. You can actually try to do that on your own. Try to put this whole model and the loading, so it concerns that and some stuff there, in a different component if you want to do it, or just follow me on that. So let's go. I'm going to create a new file. It's going to be model.js inside the src folder. And I'm going to export by default a function that I name model, like this. And this one will for now return null. All right, it returns nothing, but at least I have the component ready. Back to experience.js, we're going to load that model. So import model from model.js. I like to add the JS, which is optional, but you can do it. Next, so I'm going to put it right after the primitive. I'm going to add the model to the JSX, auto-closing. I save. All right, cool. I just created a component that is doing absolutely nothing, but I'm going to put the whole model and stuff inside of it. Next, so be careful not to save yet. We're going to move the imports, so the use loader, GLTF loader, and Draco loader. We're going to move them inside the model, like this. Next, we are going to move the loading of the model. So this part here, all right, I'm in experience.js. I'm taking the whole use loader, the model, etc., and I'm moving those inside the function right here. And finally, we're going to take the primitive. So this one here, that's why I didn't remove it. We're going to take it and put it also in the model, and more precisely in the return here. All right, and we can just return the primitive without adding fragments. We don't really care. It's just one object, so one component, so it's gonna work. We save the model, we save the experience, maybe give it a reload to make sure that we have something like clean. Wait a little, don't forget that we have the throttling that makes the model take longer to load, and it's working. All right. If it's not working, make sure that you save the two files, so experience.js, model.js. Make sure that you remove the primitive, you remove the loading at the top of the experience. Right here, see, I have nothing in the function but a return. And you don't need the imports there. You move them to the, by the way, I can remove the line break. You can move, you move them to the model.js. All right, nice. Next, as I told you, we are going to add the suspense, and we are going to add the suspense in the experience.js because we need to tell the experience that this part can just wait. All right, we want the rest to work, but we want to add a suspense to the model, so it's inside the experience file. So we're going to import it. So I'm going to do it right here. You know, I like to import things from node modules, so the dependencies first, and then my custom components. Totally optional. So suspense from React, nice. Make sure you have the import right, and then we put it around the model and check that it's gonna work just like magic. I'm going to give it a reload. Watch my screen. I reload. I can play around. If I had things to click on, if I had other objects, it would work. And see that the helmet showed up when it was ready, just like that. And it's super cool. You can, your user will be able to start using your website, play the game, etc. right away, because we added one suspense around a component. So maybe you think it was a bit hard because we had to put it inside the component, but usually you have a lot of components anyway, because you want to be able to separate stuff, to reuse components, to have props to control them. So it totally makes sense to have a bunch of components. So it's perfectly normal. So you will have components anyway, and you can just add a suspense around the component. Cool. Let's go even further about that suspense. The main issue is that, see that for now we see nothing. Maybe you want a way to show maybe like a placeholder, all right? Something that the user will be able to see while it's loading, and when it's ready, then we see it. We can do that with the fallback attribute. So let's go. In here, we're going to add fallback. Don't save yet. So it's a fallback attribute, and we provide, we inject something. And in there, as a first fallback, we're going to show a box in wireframe, right? A red box in wireframe, so that the user knows there is something loading. So it's a bit disappointing. I mean, it's just a wireframe, but you could have more. You could have a custom shader. You could have a more good-looking box or whatever. Anyway, let's add just a silly box for now. So be careful. I'm going to write everything on one line for now. So it's going to be a huge line. So follow me on that. So mesh, I'm going to open the mesh and close it right away, okay? In that mesh, we are inside the injection. I know that's silly, but we are going to improve that. In that mesh attributes, to that mesh attributes, I'm going to add position y equal 0.5. I'm going to put a scale that will perfectly match the helmet. So I'm going to put an array. To send an array, it's going to be 2, 3, 2. So x, y, z, which will perfectly fit that helmet. Then in here, so be careful, I'm between the opening and the closing of the mesh. We're going to add a box geometry like that I will auto close. It's better. To that box geometry, yeah, we're going to put, so args, we're going to put 1, 1, 1, so it's just a box, and then 2, 2, 2, which is the subdivision that we will see because it's going to be a wireframe. All right, so args on the box geometry, I know it's dirty what we are doing right now, but we are going to improve it. That's the point. I'm showing you something dirty, and then you're like, oh, that's so hard to write, and then we are going to improve that. And next, so still inside the mesh, but after the box geometry, we're going to add a mesh basic material. I'm going to auto close it. All right, see that it's auto close, and then we have the closing mesh. I hope you got it right. So easy to do mistakes when writing such a huge line like that. I'm going to add wireframe, and then I'm going to add a color red, like that. We save, give it a reload, and check my screen. We have this placeholder so that the user knows there is something that will show up right here. It's just a silly placeholder, but it's working. It wasn't that hard. Yeah, by the way, I probably shown you that already before, but you can send components to attributes just by injecting some JS, and then it's actually JSX, and you send another component, and we can inject something in that injection, and you can do a lot like this. So how can we improve that silly line of code? First, we could add some line breaks, right? And you can do that just by adding the line breaks at the right position. Make sure you are indenting the proper way. So this is inside the mesh, and the mesh is inside the fallback, and we can indent it like that. I like this one. All right, it makes sense. We know that we are in the suspense, and if we follow the vertical line, we go down to here. We know that it's closing there. Here there is an attribute, and we know that all of this is inside the attribute because we gave it a little indentation right here. So I actually like this one, but we are going to go even further by creating a placeholder component just to practice a bit more. Try to do that. If you feel like doing it, pause the video and try to create a new component that you name placeholder, and to move this inside the placeholder. And if you feel up to the task, you can also add props to that placeholder so that we can use that placeholder for other fallback, where the model has a different size, because right now the values we put are the values to make the placeholder fit the helmet. See, I'm going to give it a reload. See that? That's the box that fits the helmet, and when we see the helmet, okay, it matches. But sometimes we want to load something else, and the model has a different shape, and we want to be able to use that placeholder you're creating, but set a different size using the props. All right, pause the video if you want to do it. Now I'm going to do it with you. So first we're going to create a new component. So let's go. It's going to be placeholder.js, like this. In there, I'm going to export a default function named placeholder, like that. And in there, I'm going to return the mesh. For now, it's just the same mesh. All right, and I can actually cut this one from experience.js. I'm going to close this. So I cut it. There is nothing yet in the fallback, and I'm returning. So don't forget the return, the same mesh. Easy. Let's not try to add the props and stuff yet. I just want to make sure that I created the component properly. We save the placeholder. Back to experience. Don't save yet. We're going to import it. So let's be lazy and duplicate the model and import the placeholder like that. And then in the attributes right here, since it's quite a small line, we can just add it on one line. It's totally optional, but I'm going to do it. And I'm going to add the placeholder that I will auto close, and check that. I did something wrong. Placeholder, I forgot the E. So placeholder, and we get the same result. But see the line here? The placeholder is just one component to instantiate. Next, we are going to be able to control the size of the placeholder by using props and attributes. So let's go. First, we're going to retrieve the props in there, and we're going to forward all of them, okay? Meaning that if you put, I don't know, like position dot x equal, don't do it, I'm just showing you an example, equal to, and other stuff like rotation dot y equal whatever, like math pi multiplied by 0.2 or something like that. Again, don't do it. I want to take all the props here and forward them to the mesh. We are not going to do the React forward. We are going to do that in a later lesson. I just want like a silly forward, okay? So first we are going to retrieve the props, and I'm just going to retrieve all the props. I'm not destructuring it, all right? That you can do it with me. So I'm in the placeholder.js, I'm retrieving the props as in the function right here. And I'm going to forward them to this little guy here. I'm going, let's copy this one. So I'm going to forward them by using the spread operator, and I'm going to copy this. Oh, sorry. We are going to inject it. So spread operator dot props, and I'm going to copy those. Okay, the position y and the scale. I'm going to cut them so that we put them in the experience.js. So check that. I'm just retrieving all the props and sending the props to the mesh by using the spread operator. And don't forget to that you are injecting something. So use the curly brackets. Yeah, always forget the curly brackets when I do the spread operator, but as you can see, there is something wrong. So add the curly brackets. So I'm going to save this one. I'm going back to the experience.js, and I'm going to add the attributes I cut from the placeholder.js, which is the position y and the scale. We just save this, and it's working. And now we can control the size of it from the placeholder attributes. So the line got a bit bigger again, but it's just the minimal stuff. And we can actually remove that and get the placeholder. Check that, it's not going to be the right shape, but we get something. And if another developer wants to use your placeholder, he just add whatever attributes he wants on it, and it's working. Nice. It's just an example, kind of a silly example to have some fun, to practice React, to practice React 3 Fiber along the way. Next, we are done with that suspense, etc. By the way, suspense, it's not about React 3 Fiber, it's a React component, and it's not just about loading, it's about waiting for a task to be done. We are not going to go into detail on how to implement that when you create a component. We are just using the suspense, but it can be for much more than just loading stuff. But usually I always see examples where it's about loading anyway, which makes sense. So back to model.js, we want to have our hamburger back. I mean, this helmet looks good, but let's get our hamburger back. So it's going to be hamburger.glb. We don't need the Draco version. I know we are using the Draco loader, but we're going to fix those anyway soon. And we can save. The scale is going to be way too big, so we can get back to 0.35 and remove the position y attribute. Okay, so I change the path to hamburger.glb. And I changed the attributes so that we have the scale to 0.35 and no position offset. We have a hamburger back. Next in the list is the GLTF loading with Dre. Yay! We have everything we need thanks to Dre, you will see. It wasn't that complicated. It was a bit easier than doing it in native JavaScript, and we got access to new features like the suspense, etc. But it's going to be much easier thanks to Dre and the use GLTF helper. So if you want to load a GLTF, you can use the use GLTF helper from Dre. And there are other helpers for loading stuff, but we're going to focus on this one, which is more than enough for this lesson. So we already have Dre in the project because we have the orbit control. Inside model.js, instead of doing this code, to load everything, support Draco, etc., we're going to import, so I'm going to do it at the top import use GLTF from React 3 Dre, like that. And then we're going to use GLTF and check that. I'm going to remove that. Check what I've selected, all that part, we can remove it and just do use GLTF and set the exact same path. So it's going to be hamburger.glb, like that. I'm going to save and check that it's working. We did nothing. You might see, I don't know if you see it in my video, check on your computer, but you might see the placeholder for one frame. I think it's just one frame because, well, it takes time to load it. You can deactivate the throttling. Yeah, I forgot to deactivate it. We don't care about that anymore. So deactivate the throttling. I recommend you to keep the disable cache. I always keep this one actually, so that I test the website in final user conditions. And kind of because there is no throttling, but at least like if it's the first time I see the website. And I'm going to get back to the console. So yeah, that's cool. It's working, but check how small the code got. And since we are not using those dependencies anymore, so use loader, GLTF loader from 3, Draco loader, etc., we can remove those. And loading a model is as simple as that when using GLTF and supported formats by Dre. It's as simple as that. Give it a reload, it's still working. We have 1, 2, 3 lines of code to load a model. But wait, is Draco supported? I don't know, let's try. You know from my smile that it's gonna be fine. It's working. What happened? Use the GLTF will take care of everything for us, and we don't have to provide the Draco decoder. It's going to get it from a CDN. I don't know, so from some website. So you need to be online to get this one working. I don't know where it got it from. Maybe we can check in the network. But anyway, we don't have to provide it in the folder. So yes, I still have the Draco here, but you can remove that folder. Use GLTF is not using your Draco folder here. You can remove this one. So much more convenient. And we already did that. Yeah, okay, cool. And we're done. That's all. I just wanted to show you the hard way, now the easy way. I showed you the hard way so that maybe you need a custom loader, or you are doing some shady things with the loading or whatever. You will be able to do it, and it's not that complicated. But if you just want a model, a GLTF model, use GLTF loader and you are done. Let's talk about preloading. Our model will start loading only when the component is instantiated. In our case, it's instantiated right away. All right. In our experience, we add it just like that. So we add the model, and in the model code right here, we are loading the model. So in this case, it doesn't really make sense. But sometimes you will have a condition to load the model. Like imagine you're making a game. You have the player playing in a castle, and when he goes in that room, I don't know, it's the throne room. Well, when he goes inside that room, you will start loading models. All right, you won't start loading models. You will add models to the scene. Okay, and if he goes in the garden, you will add some trees to the scene. So trees, throne, etc. are not in the scene yet. Meaning that if you are loading the file from the component, the throne, the carpet, the king, and the tree will only load when they are being added to the scene. Is it bad? Not necessarily. This way the user can play around, he can play in he's in the jail of the castle. It's working, and when he goes to another room, then things start to pop up when they're ready, and maybe you can put some placeholder. But maybe you want an experience where you load everything from the start, so that when the player goes in that room, everything is already loaded. You add everything to that room using GSX, etc. So you add those components, but you don't want the user to see the component pop up, especially if he has a bad bandwidth, meaning that you want to preload everything. How can we do that using that code? Because right now it's loading only when the component render for the first time. Well, we can use the preload method on use GLTF. So it's already handled by the helpers. That's great. And there is a preload method on use GLTF. But you might think, what are you talking about? Use GLTF is a function, right? Check that. Use GLTF is a function. See that little F right here in the console? You don't have to log it, but see that F? It's a function. Welcome to JavaScript, where anything can be anything. That's so weird. But yes, use GLTF has a preload, and see, it's autocomplete deleted, so preload a method, and check that, it's working. We have something in there, so that's a function, and that function has a property. I don't even know how we do that in GLTF, in JavaScript. Anyway, we can use that preload to preload the component, and for some reason I put it at the end. I don't think it's necessary. You can put it wherever you want, and you're going to preload the same file, and it's very important to preload the exact same file. Okay, because if you preload a file and then the model asks to load something else, you preloaded something for no reason, so it's never going to be used. So it's a bit weird. But yeah, see that code? This is outside of the model function, meaning that at the exact moment you import the model.js file, it will start loading, even if you are not using it right here. So make sure you are using your loading stuff that you are going to use in the experience. Otherwise, you are using the bandwidth for nothing. But even if this model is optional, the hamburger-draco.glb will start loading. And that's all. I think I talked way too much, as always, to explain something quite simple. I hope you get the idea. Yeah, and make sure to get the exact same file path. Let's continue with our hamburgers. And as Pippin said, what about the second breakfast? In our case, how about a second hamburger? We want more hamburgers. What if we want a second hamburger, or 3 or 100? Should we add like multiple models? Should we load them multiple times and hope that React Free Fiber and everything will optimize it? Well, yes and no. Dre makes that possible with the clone helper, but we just need to implement it. It's going to be super handy, you will see. And I'm going to explain a bit more what's happening. So in model.js, instead of having just one model, so maybe we should rename it models, but don't do it. We're going to change it to something else anyway. We're going to import the clone helper. Oh, what am I doing? It's going to be the clone helper from Dre. Like that. And we're going to wrap, we're going to replace the primitive by clone, like that, all right? And since it's auto-closing, we just change this one here. Give it a save and a reload, and we get the same result. But by doing that, we can now clone it. And I'm going to do a small mistake. I'm doing that. Can you see the mistake? Classic easy mistake. You can't return multiple things like that. You need to return one thing, and I'm going to use a fragment and put the clones inside that one thing, right? It's just some React stuff. It has nothing to do with the clone or React Fiber. So yeah, return is returning a fragment, and in that fragment, we are putting a bunch of clone. And we are going to move them to really see the difference. I'm going to provide position.x equal, and I'm injecting something. And it's going to be -4, so it's on the x, so it's going to go on the left. 1 at the center, and +4, so just 4. And check that. We get 3 hamburgers. And check in there how much geometries we have. So before, I'm just going to add 1 hamburger. We have 5 geometries, because 1 here, it's the floor, the bottom bun, the meat, the cheese, and the top bun. I always want to say Top Gun when I say top bun. Okay. And right here, when I have 3 hamburgers, I still have 5 geometries, meaning that this geometry is used for all 3 meshes. And it already improved the performances a little when you do that. So if you want to add a bunch of hamburgers, you just load one file, and you use the clone to multiply it, to clone it. The name is have been chosen well, to clone it across your scene. Okay, next we're going super fast, a bunch of cool features that we're discovering on each section. That's super cool. GLTF to component. Oh yeah, this one is super interesting. If we want to manipulate, I think we're going to get back to 1, or no, we can keep it like that. If we want to manipulate the different part of the hamburger, what can we do? Like, I'm not happy with the color of the cheese, or maybe I want to scale it down a little, or maybe I want to, I don't know, activate shadows, but just on the meat for some reason, or whatever. How can we do that? Maybe we can traverse the model It's possible because we are not going to see that into details. We will have other opportunities, but remember what we get when we load the model using use GRTF. We get access to a bunch of things, and we get access to the nodes. And we have the top bun, the cheese, the meat, top bun. So maybe we can manipulate it by doing so nodes, top bun, etc. But it's not very convenient. We can do that, but it's not convenient. We're going to do that later in a later lesson, but not a big fan of this one. Maybe we can open it in Blender or whatever 3D software you like to use, and then change the color. All right, it's working too, but it's just it's a bit long. You need to learn to know how to use the 3D software, and you can just do it once, and you can't change it on the fly. Okay, so those are viable solutions, but we want a better solution. And we can use a new solution, which is going, yeah, wouldn't be awesome to have our hamburger available like if it was a component. A component, and in that component, we would have other components. It would be a component for the top bun, a component for the cheese, a component for the meat, and a component for the bottom bun. That would be awesome, right? So that we can do whatever we want, like we do JSX, and then we can change the color of the top bun, and then we can add some, I don't know, some ingredients in between using 3GS. That would be cool. Well, we can do that thanks to, the name is a bit weird, it's GRTF to React 3 Fiber, but sometimes it's written with an arrow, sometimes it's 2, so TO. So the name of the tools is GRTF to React 3 Fiber, and we can do that. So what is GRTF to React 3 Fiber? It's going to convert a GRTF file to a React 3 Fiber component, and we can use a command line tool. So you can check that link. As always, check the link in the tab links, or the online version. We're going to be lazy and use the online version because the website is super cool too. Okay, let's go. We're going to convert our hamburger using that website. I'm going to open it on the side. Yeah, I hope it will fit like this. Yeah, by the way, you can drag and drop the file that we are going to do, or you can use Susan. If you click on Susan, we get this. All right, and as you can see, we get some React 3 Fiber, some component named model that we can use. But let's get back. I'm going to give it a reload. Let's use our hamburger. We want to test with the hamburger. And we're going to drag and drop the file. So I'm going to get it from there, public. So check in your public folder. I think you can use both the hamburger Draco and the non-Draco version. Let's try with the Draco. Yeah, see? And it works. So you can use the Draco version. And you get that. So you have some code on the left. That's the component code. We are familiar with it. See, there is some React, use ref, use GRTF, because we do need to load some stuff anyway. But then we have some GSX, and we have a group, okay? And we have 4 meshes, and each one of those mesh is one part of the hamburger, and it has been created automatically. So we have the bottom bun, we have the cheese, we have the meat, we have the top bun, and we have the positions, and we have eventually, if we had some, rotation, material, etc., etc. So we can play with those, we can change those, we can remove the receive shadows, we can tweak them however we want. We can add some scale, etc., etc. And we have also the preload that has been added to the project. At the end of the components. So how do we use that exactly? Let me show you. Refactoring. Yeah, first we need to import that component. So you can copy that, but I don't recommend copy that since there are some syntax. Code highlight, syntax highlight. You know, with colors here and there. Maybe it's not a good idea to copy that code. But check there. Maybe you recognize this little guy here. It's Leva, obviously. You can open this part here, and first you can play with it. See? I'm deactivating the shadows, so we have no shadows. Let's keep it. We can play with the keep names so that we keep the names. Maybe it can be useful. I'm not going to use it. Some meta, some precision about the position. So if you want something more precise, you can have it. So spend some time with the tweaks if you want. That's not exactly what we want. This is just for the preview. So stop moving. I'm going to get sick. You can just deactivate the auto rotate, etc., etc. The part that we want to check is the exports part. Okay, and this is the part where we can get that component. You have multiple solutions. You can copy to the clipboard, and it will just copy what you wrote here. In our case, it's okay to do that. because we don't need the file. Okay, the file is already in our public folder. We did things right. We can just copy that code and use it in our application. But if you provided a GLTF file and it's from any folder and it was not in your project folder with the exact same name, then you need to download the project, right, to get something that will work. And if you do that, you get access to a bunch of things. No, I should not show. I'll let you discover that. I'm already spending too much time on this, but this is a mini React project, so you can use it. And download the image. I don't know what's that. Some image. Oh, it's doing a preview. Oh, I didn't even know. Maybe that's a new feature. I've never seen this one. You can just take a picture of your hamburger using that view here. So if I do it like that, I guess it's gonna be, yeah, it's working. It's so cool. And it's using the size you're using right here. So we are just going to copy that file here. I mean, that text here. So just click on copy to clipboard. And it's just like you did Control C or Command C if you're on a Mac. I'm going to put that website back right here. I'm going to close this. I'm going to get back to the experience. Okay, nice. We're going to create a new component. Okay, so I'm going to open the sidebar, and in there, I copy it. Remember, it's in my clipboard. So I'm going to do a new file, and I'm going to create inside the src folder, hamburger.js or JSX if you prefer, but I prefer to use JS. And I'm going to paste what I copied earlier, and you should get something like that. Don't use the code I provide in the course, because maybe things have changed a little since then. So use the one provided by GLTF to React 3 Fiber. Okay, when you click on that, you get some code. You copy in hamburger.js file, the file that we just created together. Next, we can do some refactoring. The code right here is working. The path is fine, because remember, we have our hamburger-draco.glb inside the public folder, and it will work. If you have a different path, you will have to change this part. But still, if you're a bit maniac like me, maybe you can do some refactoring. First, you can refactor the various line breaks, indent, and semicolon. Like, personally, I don't like those semicolon. I prefer to use simple quotes. I prefer to use 4 spaces. You can do that. We are not going to do that because it's okay. It's in a different file. Maybe you have a linter that will do it for you. Maybe you prefer that way of coding. We're not going to do that. And anyway, if we do some changes on the model and need to use GLTF to React 3 Fiber again, it's going to mess up with what we changed. So we are not going to change this one here. Yes, about the path, I already told you. The path is fine in our case. The one in the preload too, but still we can maybe add the little dot right here so that we make sure that it's working even if your final website is something like mywebsite.com, so your website.com /something. Okay, if you have a path like this, you need to add the dot slash, but let's not do that. I mean, yeah, let's add it, and we use the same on both parts here. And yeah, also one thing that we can change is that it's not exporting by default, meaning that it's exporting something named model. I like to export by default, and to change the name, instead of model, I call it hamburger, so that when I import it, it will auto import something called hamburger. I think it makes a bit more sense. You do whatever you want for this part. It's not mandatory. So I have added default, and I've changed the name to hamburger. Okay, next, we want to import it. Why didn't I save the model? Yeah, I don't know. My model file wasn't saved. Let me check. No, it's still working. I think everything is fine. Yeah, I think I removed the console log. So in experience.js, so right here, not the model. Okay, we are not using our model. We are relying on GLTF to React 3 Fiber. We can import the hamburger. So I'm going to be lazy and import it like that. So it's in the same folder. So hamburger like that. If you didn't do the default change, it should be something like that. Okay, model from the hamburger.js file. But since we export it as default and renamed it, we can just do that. Renaming is optional actually, but anyway, let's move forward. And then back here, we're going to remove the model and just use the hamburger like that. All right, I'm not using the model anymore. I'm just using the hamburger, and we get something like that. kind of the same result. I mean, it's too big, so we're going to fix that first. We're going to change the scale right on that component. Because we can do that, I'm going to do 0.35, and now it's the right size. Because attributes, which are props in the end, are forwarded. See that? We get the props here, and we forward them to the group containing the various meshes of our bun. Just fixed the light. I realized that the sun is quite bright today. Anyway, let's move forward. Yeah, we did most of the lesson. It's going well. Since every part of the model are written as mesh and group in the hamburger.js, that was the whole point of what we just did here. We can manipulate it the way we want. Like if we want to, let's do something quite simple. If we want to move it's gonna be the top bun. So where is my top bun? So the order is probably different for you, okay? So I'm targeting the top bun right here, and I can move it up a little by doing, I don't know, like 3, and see, it moved. And I can change also the materials and add my own materials, change the geometries, add some salads by using some planes or whatever in between. You can do whatever you want. All right, put back the original position and let's continue. Have you seen the shadow? It looks like my hamburger. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, I think you can see it on the video, but it looks like my hamburger is a bit burned. It's a bit weird. It doesn't look that bad, but it's not the normal behavior. And we already know what's happening here. Maybe you remember from the previous lessons. This is what we call shadow acne. Each mesh is currently casting and receiving shadows. And when you have such a round, round shape, sometimes the model is casting shadows on itself. All right, the top bun is casting shadows on itself, and it's because of the precision of the shadow, the way it's handled by the shadow map. I'm not going to explain into details because we already talked about that, but still we need to fix that. And we can do that, so it's kind of a bonus. It's not really related to the lesson. But back to experience.js, we can do that, fix that with bias and shadow bias, if you remember, which will change the way it tests if something is in the shadow, and it will make it smaller or bigger so that it doesn't cast shadow on itself. I mean, the test will be smaller or bigger so that it doesn't cast shadow on itself. So it's on the shadow of the directional light, and we can access the shadow on the directional by doing shadow, and it's the normal bias property of the shadow. So it's going to be shadow dash normal bias equal, and then we provide 0.04 instead of 0, and check that the issue is gone. So in a way, we are offsetting the shadow. So don't put too much in there. Otherwise, well, you won't see it anymore. If I put, I don't know, like 0.5, see, it's starting to bug a little. It doesn't look that bad, but the shadow is not accurate anymore. And try to find a small value that matches. All right, this is not the topic of this lesson. This is a topic in this lesson. Kind of. We're actually getting a bit away from the just loading stuff. It's about animation. We are going to use the usual fox. If you remember, you know, the fox running or just serving or just walking. It's provided by the Chronos group. As always, I gave the link to all those samples I provide. So that's the fox. And you can check, it's just a bunch of models that we can use for our projects. It's already in the project. I'm going to close this and that. The fox is already in the public folder inside the fox folder too, and we have the GLTF, the binary, the embedded, we have some screenshot, and I put also the README with the license. All right, cool. We're going to follow me. We're going to create a fox component because we're going to put it in a component just to put it in a component. We're going to load any of the model variations. So we have the GLTF, the binary, or the embed. Maybe load just the GLTF, why not? And then we're going to add it to the scene. Just that. We're not talking about animation yet. We just want to load, to create a component that will load the fox and add it to the scene like we did for the hamburger. Now is a good time to practice on your own. If you want to see if you can redo what we did with the hamburger, it's a good opportunity. Don't worry if you can't do it. It's all about practicing, and we're going to do it together anyway. So if you want to do it, pause the video. Let's do it together now. Let's go. So first we're going to create a component inside the src folder. I'm going to create a fox Fox file, so fox.js file. In there, I'm going to export by default a function named fox, like this, which is returning nothing for now, so null. Inside our experience, so save the fox. Inside our experience, we're going to, let's be lazy and import the fox, like that, no trick. Then we're going to add it to the scene. I'm going to add it at the bottom of the scene. Maybe I can close this. Yeah. So I've imported the fox.js file as fox. And in there, I'm going to add it to the scene using an auto-closing tag. All right, all good. But there, the fox is returning null, which is why we can't see anything. Next, we need to load the model. So in here, we're going to use GLTF, and I'm going to try to auto-import it. Let's see if it's working. So I'm going to do model equal use GLTF, and yes, it's working. All right, but the import, I'm not a big fan of double quotes like this. I'm going to use single quotes, and then I'm going to provide in the use GLTF. Make sure the import worked. Maybe for you it didn't work. Maybe pause the video. And in there, I'm going to provide the path to load one of the variations of the fox. So for me, it's going to be /fox GLTF, be careful, T and F are uppercase, not the G and L, /fox.gltf, and this time it's GLTF lowercase, but the fox has a uppercase F. So I think it worked, but we didn't add it to the scene. Do you remember what we need to use to add an object to the scene? Not the clone, we are just going to use the primitive. So let's go, return primitive, like this. And to that primitive, you need to provide an object attribute. Sometimes I forget the name of the attribute. It's object. And it's not going to be, oh, sorry, I named it model, but you can name it fox. Let's use what I've prepared in the lesson. So the name, what you get from use GLTF, you assign it to a fox variable, not model, to follow the lesson. And in there, we're not just going to add the fox, it's the fox.scene, all right? Because fox is just an object with a bunch of properties that we can use, and the property that we need is the scene. I can log it quickly, check that. See, the scene is just a group with various meshes in it, and those meshes have material, etc., etc. And what do we get? Where is my fox? Can you see it? It's there. Okay, so maybe you did it properly, but you're like, no, it looks like I did something wrong. You can see 1 feet over there. I don't know for your resolution, but it's actually just huge. So maybe you got it right, but didn't zoomed out, and you didn't see that there is actually a huge fox in your scene. So let's fix that. I'm going to add some line breaks here and there. Let's reduce the scale. So it's going to be 0.02. Let's change the position. It's going to be an array, so XYZ, -2.5, 0, 2.5, something like that. And then let's test what we get. Yeah, we're going to move it closer to the camera in front of the hamburger, which is why I put those values. You can put it somewhere else, so you do whatever you want. Rotation.y, I'm going to rotate it a little so that we can see it more clearly. And yeah, just like that. So hope you did it on your own. If it's not the case, don't worry, we're going to practice anyway. We're going to load more models later. It's all about practicing, don't worry. We added the model, that's great, but the goal of this section was to play the animation, because this fox has an animation. It actually has 3 animations. The survey, when we look around, walking, and then running. Okay, and we're going to go even further, if you remember from the preview I gave you at the beginning of the lesson. There is obviously an helper. There is always a helper. Sounds like, you know, Apple advertising. There is an app for that. And today there is a helper for that. And it's use animations with an S. So we're going to import it from Dre. We already have Dre here, so we are going to add it there. So animation, I'm inside the fox.js file. Animations right here, yeah, use animations. And then we are going to use it, and on what we need to use it, well, you can check what we get in the fox. Check that. In there, we get a bunch of values. So we have the scene. Okay, great. But we also have, where is it? The animations. Yeah, this one. And I told you that there is 3 animations: survey, walk, and running, because you can have multiple animations on the same model and export everything as one GLTF file, which is very useful if you play not a fox, let's say a character. He can shoot, he can run, he can I don't know, watch with goggles or whatever. You put all those animations in one model. Yeah, to use that, so we're going to create an animations variable with an S, animations with an S, and we're going to call use animations, and we're going to send it two things. We need to send the animations array. So I told you it's in the fox.animations, like that, and then the fox.scene. All right, because you need to tell it those animations need to be applied on this, and it's going to be applied on the scene. You can save it. Let's check what we get. We're going to log it like that, like this, and we get those things. We get a bunch of clips, and it seems to be working. So we have access to the various animations provided with the model, and each one has been converted into an animation action. If you remember, we already talked a bit about animation in 3JS. It's quite a complex topic with a bunch of classes, and those classes have many different methods and properties that we can use. But the idea that if you want to play the run animation, you need to use the animation action. And by using use animations, this animation action has already been created. Without going too much into detail, we can just play the animation thanks to what useGLTF provided, and those are the actions. And yeah, we have access to those in that action object. By the way, you might see something weird, like see what just happened. I reload the page, maybe you get a different result. It depends on your version of Chrome, the version of a lot of things. If you're using Firefox, sometimes I reload, it's not the same. So it's a bit weird, but see that actions property, it's empty. But if I click on it to open it, it's not empty anymore. It's because when it was logged, it was empty. But when you open it, it's going to check again if there is something in it before showing you the result. Chrome is going to check again. And when you click on it, on the action property, there are some stuff in there. And there are three things which are run, survey, and work, which are exactly the names of the animations I told you about. So if you want to play, I don't know, the run animation, you're going to call, so it's going to be animations.actions.run, and this is the object, the instance that you need to use to play the animation. And we're going to do that right now. But it's better to do it once the component has finished rendering for the first time. For the exact same reason I just told you about at the beginning, when we log it, maybe those actions are not ready. Let's not take any risk. We're going to do it after the first render, and we can do that using React and the use effect hook. Let's go. We're going to import it. So it's going to be import use effect from React, like this. And then we are going to use it there. It's going to be use effect. Remember, you provide to use effect a function. And then according to the dependency array you provide here, React, use effect, we call your function on the first render, when something changes, etc. We're going to talk a bit more about use effect and use it differently. You will see a bit later in a few minutes. All right, so this one, if you do a quick log, hey, I'm going to put hey inside this one. It's just doing it after the first render of the component, and that's all. Just after the first component, and even if the component is re-rendering, it won't call this one again. And that's the perfect opportunity to play the action. So first we are going to retrieve the action. We're going to use the run animation, so it's going to be the run action. We're going to do const action equal animations. All right, it's the one we got from use animations. I told you that there is a actions property, and in that action properties we have access to the various animations, and for us it's going to be the run with the uppercase R. Those are defined when the animation has been created. Like if you use Blender, you can choose the various names of those animations. You can make sure that it's working by logging it and check that. We have the animation action, and this animation action has a bunch of methods to play the animation, and the main one is play, just like that. So it was a bit long because I can't help myself but to explain everything as much detail as possible, but in the end there is not a lot of code, okay? It's 4 lines of code and it's working. And check that, I didn't save yet, but now I saved. As you can see, it's running. You can change it to, I don't know, like walk. Yeah, it's working. And then maybe survey, and it's working. All right, I'm going to put back run. Nice. Let's move forward. We are going to go a little further. That's already great, but can we go even further? Yeah, by the way, use animation and React Free Fiber are taking care of everything. If you remember from the previous lessons, we have to do the update ourselves to provide the elapsed time, etc. It was a bit complicated. We can just use that and let React Free Fiber and use animation take care of the rest. If you want the Fox to start working after a few seconds, because right now it's working, so put, running, so put the run animation. If you want after, I don't know, like 2 or 3 seconds that the Fox starts walking instead of running, you can use the crossfade from method. I'm just pushing the limit a bit further so that you understand a bit more about the animation part, but also a bit more about the use effect. You will see why later. So right now it's running. I want it to start working after 2 seconds, but I don't want to start working like it's running and suddenly it's working. I want a fade between those values. I want a mix between those values for, I don't know, like 0.05 seconds. It should be enough. How can we do that? First, we need to trigger some instructions after a moment, and we can do that with window set timeout. You can remove the window like this. You can just call set timeout. It's implicit. And we're going to provide a function first, and then how long before calling that function. This is a native JavaScript, okay? The set timeout is just like wait that long in milliseconds before calling that function. And in that function, I'm going to put some code like this. We're going to do animations, actions, walk. So it's the same code we put there, but this time we're using walk. And we're going to play it. And then we're going to ask for a crossfade. So it's going to be on the walk. We're going to ask for a crossfade. So crossfade from is the walk is going to crossfade from the run. You follow me on this? I know it's a bit tedious, but you will see it's going to work. Crossfade run, and then you provide how long it takes to crossfade those two values. So the run we go down, and the walk we go up while the whole animation is playing. One will stop and the other one will start, and it's going to take 1 second. You can give it a try, give it a reload, 0, 1, 2, and now it's working. So it was running. I can do it again, 0, 1, 2, and now it's working. And we didn't have like an ugly cut between those. It was progressive. Nice, that was one example. We are going to push the example even further, just for the sake of learning and have some fun. We're going to control the animation, meaning that I want the user to be able to say, hey Fox, now I want you to survey. Hey Fox, I want you to run. Hey Fox, I want you to walk. So how can we do that? And we're going to learn about the cleanup phase along the way. We're going to use leva. All right, it's a good solution. We could say that there are some boxes, and when we click on that box, it's going to run. We can do that, but instead we're going to use leva because we know how to use leva, and it's going to be super convenient. So first, we're going to add leva to the project. So I'm going to do, let's create a new terminal, npm install leva, and I'm going to force a version. It's going to be the 0.9, so that we make sure that we have the exact same result. npm install leva 0.9 to the project. Okay, it's installed. I'm going to close that terminal. I'm using the terminal from VS Code, but use whatever terminal you want. And the server is still running, okay? And I'm going to close that terminal. Nice, we have leva added to the dependencies. Inside the fox.js file, we are going to import it. So it's going to do, it's the use controls helper. So use controls from leva, like that. The use control, we will add controls to the application. And after the use animation, so right here, see that? We are going to call use controls to create a tweak. And that tweak will be a choice, meaning a select. It will look like a select, just like we did quickly in the debug lesson with React Free Fiber. And in that select, we are going to have the survey, work, and run options. just that. And you can try to do it on your own, just to practice Leva a little, okay? I want a choice right here by using use control. I want a tweak that let us choose between walk, run, and survey, just like that. Not using them yet, but just taking it from, creating the tweak. Try to do it on your own if you want, and we're going to do it together anyway. So here's the solution. We're going to destructure it already, and I'm going to save it as animation name, okay? Because at the end it's going to be walk, run, or survey. It's the name of the animation. You can just put animation singular if you want, but I like animation name. I'm going to call use controls, and to use control, I'm going to send an object, and in that object, I'm going to have the same property as the name I've destructured right here. And to that one, since I want a select, so a choice, I need to provide another object, and in that other object, I need to provide options. All right, options, that makes no sense. Options, like this. And to that options, I can write them like survey, walk, and run. And it's going to work, I think. Yep, it's working. You can ignore that error for the reasons we already explained. So it's working. But if the model changes and there is, I don't know, like a new animation, well, it's not going with that animation, it won't show up here. So instead, what we can do is use the name from there, from the animation. And those are actually saved in the animations.name variables. Animations.name, sorry, with an S. Like that. Survey, walk, and run. So convenient. So we can save those, take those and put them instead of that array, all right? Instead of the array, like this. And check that, now I have survey, walk, and run, and it's working. And if the model changes and there is new animations, those animations will show up right here. We are almost done. Hang on, it's gonna be super cool. First of all, we are not going to play the run animation, we're going to play the current animation name. Okay, and we can get access to objects property as if it was an array like this. This is native JavaScript. I'm not going to go into details, but if you send that variable, so animation name right here, and this contains survey, well, it will be like doing animation actions survey, and it's going to work. Check that. Nice. So it's working. The default one is survey, which is why when we reload the page, he's doing the survey animation, and we still have the set timeout where after 2 seconds it starts working. We're going to get rid of this one. This one is messing up with us. So remove the set timeout and everything that was inside the function. So now it's just doing the survey, and it's going to keep doing the survey for forever. Okay, now here's the thing. Here's the trick, which is going to be simple but maybe a bit new for you. When we change that, nothing is happening, all right? Because we just said that on the first, after the first render of the component, we play that survey animation. But when we change this one, well, this code was just executed one on the first animation. It's not going to change. So what can we do? We can use the use effect dependencies. That's the whole point of that array. We almost every time provided the same thing, which was an empty array, because we wanted to trigger those instructions only on the first render. But the whole point of dependencies is to trigger those functions also when something changes, and we can specify what variables should be observed. And that's the whole point here. We are going to put animation name. Just like that. And I'm going to put a log. It's not that simple. It's not going to do everything just like that. So we need to do some changes, but you will see the result. It will start working. So if I put the console log, so you added the animation name. So to the dependency array of use effect, we added the animation name, meaning that this function will be called when this variable changes. So on the first render, but also if this variable changes. And in there, in the use effect function, I'm also logging it. So the first time it's survey, and check that. I'm going to switch to walk, and it seems to be working, but there is something weird happening with the fox. It looks like I don't know, he broke a leg or something like that. Try with run and you will see it's even weirder. What just happened? So first of all, it seems to be working because we get some logs. We got survey, walk, run, and if we get back to, I don't know, like walk, okay, it got back to walk again, but the animation is so weird. The animation of the fox looks weird after we change it again and again. All animations are playing together. That's the reason. We just played the survey. We just say, okay, survey animation, play. And then we say walk animation, play. When you do that, both animations will play together and they will be mixed together. Like half of one will be playing, half of the other one. And when you add the run animation, it will be a mix, like a third of each one of the animations. So it's all messed up. Maybe that's what you want to do, but we want them to just play one animation at a time. But we want a clean transition between those. We want that fading thing, you know, when one is going up and the other one is going down. When there are, we want a progressive change between those. We want the old animation to fade out and we want the new animation to fade in. That's the idea. So how can we do that? First, we're going to remove the log. We are going to fade it in already, all right? Because we know that instead of just playing it, we want to fade it in. So we are going to add, check that, it's right before the play. I'm going to add dot fade in, like that. And to the fade in, you need to provide how long it fades in. We want it quite fast, but not too fast. So 0.5 should be fine. So it's half a second. So you can chain things like that, okay? So we say that to that action to fade in, but also start playing. You need to do both. Next, we want when it changes, so we want when we do that to fade out the animation that was playing. And maybe you remember how to do that. In the use effect, we can return something. And to that return, we can provide a function. And that function will be called when the component, it can be when the component is being disposed. Like if you do this function will be called when the component is being disposed, which is what we did in the React lesson, if I'm right. But right now, this component will be called when the value changes again. So not on the first one. The best thing we can do to understand this one is to put some logs in there, and I'm going to write dispose. Although it's not really disposing of the components, we are going to dispose of stuff here. Just reload and you will understand. On the first loading of the page, this one is not being called. So this part here is being called, nice, but this one is not being called. But if you change to walk, then dispose has been called. Nice. So in a way, we can stop the currently playing animation. And the cool part is that we get access to it. We get access to the action because that function is inside this function, meaning that we have access to everything that is in there, meaning that we have access to the action, the currently playing action. By the way, we call this phase the cleanup phase in React. It's where you clean things that you need to clean. You clean memories, you stop playing animation, you put back the initial color or whatever you need to do. You empty the local storage like we did in the React lesson. That's the whole point of this. And try to clean things as best as you can. We are not going to be very clean in the next lessons because we're going to focus on the topics of each lesson. But when you create something for a real project, some other developers might use them, and sometimes they will add it and then remove it. And when they remove it, they want everything to stop playing, everything to be put back as default, the memory to be emptied, etc., etc. All right, so what should we do right here? Well, we're going to do the opposite of when the animation starts. So we're going to fade it out. We're going to do action.fade out. And again, you need to provide how long it takes. We want them to fade in and fade out at the exact same moment. So it's going to be 0.5. And we can remove the console log. Does it work? Check that. I'm going to switch to walk. And yes, it's working. Run. It's working. It's just the run animation because the previous one has fade out. And can we get back to, I don't know, like survey? Not really. Something weird happened. To fix that, we need to add a reset right here. We need to reset the animation. So we're going to do reset right here. And now check what we get here. Survey. I'm going to do the same path. Run, and then back to survey, and now it's working. All right, so you need to survey. One other reason of resetting is so that the animation starts from the beginning. Okay, so yeah, you need to add reset to it. And by the way, if you don't like to write things like that, I'm not a big fan, because sometimes you just check the end of the line and you see that this line is only playing stuff. Well, actually, no, it's also failing it, the thing, and then resetting it. So you can do that and that and that. It's a lot more lines, but I think it makes more sense and it's easier to understand. You do whatever you want. This is valid JavaScript anyway. And we are done. So now we can play the animation, we can tweak it, we can change it, we can rotate around. We have our fox. It's super cool. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and we're going to load some more models later in the course, as you will see. And I see you in the next lesson.